Theodore, burdened with worry, made his way to Professor Vince's lab. Vince, his closest confidant at the academy, had likely noticed Theodore's unusual progress. Theodore, financially strapped and struggling with mana sensitivity, had always been honest with Vince. Now, he was faced with the challenge of concealing the existence of gluttony. Despite gluttony's claim of numerous ways to boost magic power, it had only revealed one to Theodore. In a world where only a handful of methods were known, and others often led to a decrease in magic power, Theodore found himself in a tight spot. As he stood before Vince's lab door, he couldn't think of an excuse. The 1-second circle dunce was now top of his class. This change was the result of Theodore confronting his problems head-on. Now, he faced another challenge. Theodore, determined not to flee, knocked on the door of Professor Vince's lab. As he entered, the familiar aroma of coffee greeted him. Vince, engrossed in a parchment, looked up at Theodore with an unreadable expression. Vince had just returned from a lengthy faculty meeting about disciplining Garcia Carter, a task complicated by Garcia's influential father, Viscount Carter. The academy was hesitant to punish Garcia and risk offending his father. Vince, frustrated with the indecisive professors, reaching inside his pocket. He then produced a pendant with a red jewel that radiated significant magic power. Theodore was awestruck by the high-quality artifact. He recognized the silver pendant, named Roaring Flames, as a superior artifact. It had been used by Garcia during their spar, explaining Garcia's sudden power surge. To Theodore's surprise, Vince tossed him the pendant, explaining it was an apology from Viscount Carter for Garcia's attack. Despite Theodore's disbelief, Vince assured him that if he wasn't satisfied, he could return the pendant and Garcia would be expelled. Theodore quickly agreed to keep the pendant, accepting the situation. Theodore was taken aback by his sudden fortune. The artifact, Roaring Flames, could potentially help Theodore reach the 4th circle before graduation. However, the peaceful moment was interrupted when Vince began to question Theodore. Vince had always recognized Theodore's potential, but he was puzzled by Theodore's sudden transformation. Despite his suspicions, Vince assured Theodore that he didn't believe he would resort to dishonest methods for such growth. Instead, Vince offered his help, wanting to guide Theodore as his teacher. Theodore realized he was at a crossroads. His decision to reveal or hide his secret would significantly impact his future. If he chose to keep it a secret, he could continue his current path and graduate as an elite student. But would that truly be the case? Theodore considered the risks of his current path. He had been secretly taking books from the library for gluttony to consume. If he had Vince's support, he wouldn't need to take such risks. But that wasn't the main issue. The real question was whether he should trust Vince or not. After a moment of silence, Theodore made his decision. He looked at Vince and said, "Professor, could you take a look at my hand?" This choice would shape his future. With these thoughts in mind, Theodore decided to reveal his secret to Vince. He asked Vince not to be surprised. Theo proceeded to wake up gluttony. After he appeared from his slumber, Vince started to question reality. Theodore, after summoning gluttony, watched as it consumed the precious artifact, Roaring Flames. The pendant, a high-grade magic stone, was a valuable item that could significantly increase magic power and affinity for fire magic when activated. As gluttony consumed the pendant, Theodore noted that it was the first time an object's digestion had exceeded 1 hour. This suggested that stronger items would likely take longer to digest. Professor Vince, taken aback by the sight of gluttony and its consumption of the pendant, asked for an explanation. Theo reassured him and began to explain the nature of gluttony and its ability to consume and digest magical items. Theodore's explanation about gluttony was quickly understood by Vince, who was not only a magician but also a genius scholar. Vince acknowledged the absurdity of the grimoire's ability to gain magic power and knowledge from consumed items, a concept modern magicians couldn't fathom. Vince, however, was not pleased that Theo had fed library books to gluttony, but he understood that Theodore had done so out of necessity. Theo, with a worried look on his face, wanted to ask Vince a question. But before he could do so, Vince interrupted him, saying that he probably wanted to ask why is it that Vince is not interested in taking the grimoire for himself. Vince then explained to a surprised Theodore that grimoires choose their own masters and retaliating against them could be dangerous. Therefore, gluttony was of no use to Vince, and it was often better to study a grimoire by the owner's side, plus it seems to be impossible to transfer the grimoire to another user. Theodore was grateful for Vince's honesty and willingness to help. Vince, in turn, expressed his gratitude for telling him all of that. And to repay Theo's trust, Vince made an oath to keep Theo's secrets, binding himself with a spell that couldn't be cancelled once activated. This act of trust transformed their relationship, with Vince now seeing Theodore not just as a student, but as a fellow magician. Overwhelmed with emotion, Theodore thanked Vince and looked forward to their future partnership. This marked the first time that Theodore, once considered the Academy's longtime dunce, had made a true ally. Theodore's life at Bergen Academy continued as usual, with him attending classes and feeding gluttony with library books. However, his newfound trust in Professor Vince had eased his worries about the consequences of his actions. Vince had offered to replace the consumed library books. Vince could provide Theodore with artifacts to boost his magic power. These artifacts were not only more affordable than conventional magic reagents but also more effective. Consuming these artifacts also expanded Theodore's repertoire of magic spells. This new arrangement had eliminated Theodore's need to visit the black market. Theodore's routine visit to Professor Vince's laboratory took an unexpected turn when he noticed the unusually clean state of the room. Vince revealed that he had received an invitation to the prestigious Melter Kingdom's annual magic contest, an event that attracted magicians from across the continent. The invitation allowed Vince to bring along an assistant, and he offered this opportunity to Theodore. Excited and eager, Theodore looked forward to the prospect of attending this renowned event. Vince was suggesting that Theodore could graduate early from Bergen Academy by winning a level 3 prize or higher at the annual magic contest, as per the Academy's rules. Vince believed that Theodore had already gained all he could from the Academy and that participating in the contest could be a beneficial next step for him. This opportunity would not only allow Theodore to graduate early but also challenge him in ways that the Academy no longer could. It seems like an exciting new chapter is about to begin in Theodore's journey as a magician. In the esteemed Academy, Theo had become a topic of heated debate. Professor Vince, recognizing Theo's potential, warned him about the prideful professors who blamed others for their mistakes. One such professor, Bernard, seemed to harbor a growing resentment towards Theo. Vince advised Theo to keep his distance from such negativity and focus on his magical studies. He suggested that Theo could benefit from an early graduation and practice in the capital. Theo was unsure about his ability to win the contest as he was only a third circle master. Vince reassured him that his unique skills made him capable of competing with fourth circle magicians. He suggested Theo participate in the annual magic contest's battle magic division, which was open to students. Theo felt a spark of hope. Despite the gap between the third and fourth circles, his unique memorize ability, which he got after eating Garcia's heirloom, and battlefield experience gave him an edge. Vince believed that Theo could overcome his lack of magic power with his expert level experience. Deciding to take on the challenge, Theo agreed to participate in the contest. Vince offered to help fill in any gaps in Theo's knowledge and opened a drawer from which he took a book. He explained that distinguishing between original and copied books was easy for him, but finding the book proved some way challenging. Vince explained to Theo that while duplication magic could create a physical copy of a book, it wouldn't retain the original's abilities and would leave a mark to distinguish it from the original. Vince then handed Theo a valuable book. This book was worth 50 gold, a price that reflected the greed of certain collectors. However, Vince had procured it because it was something Theo needed. Theo was allowed to appraise the book, which turned out to be an original work titled Introduction to Elemental Magic. The book was rated as rare and had the potential to increase Theo's proficiency in elemental magic and possibly open his elemental affinity. Theo was stunned by this gift, realizing that Vince was fulfilling their agreement of providing him with magic books or artifacts in exchange for answers to his questions. Vince promised 2 more rare-grade books soon. Vince then informed Theo that they would be departing for the capital in 3 days, and advised him to prepare for the journey. Theo eagerly anticipates feeding Gluttony the newly acquired book. Gluttony, who has been asleep, awakens with a voracious appetite. Gluttony's hunger has lessened recently, requiring fewer books for sustenance. This change concerns Theodore, as he wonders if he'll need to be more selective with the books he feeds Gluttony in the future. Despite his worries, Theodore proceeds with the feeding ritual. He feeds him the book. Introduction to Elemental Magic. As Gluttony devours the book, Theodore's understanding of elemental magic deepens. Suddenly, a connection is established with Mordal Hersium, the author of the book. This connection is different from the synchro he experienced before, leaving Theodore curious about its implications. However, before he can ponder further, a piercing sound invades his senses, and he feels as if his spirit is being pulled into an abyss. Despite his fear and resistance, Theodore's consciousness succumbs to the pull and descends into the abyss where Mordal Hersium awaits. Theodore finds himself in a serene, outdoor setting, lying on the ground. This sudden shift in surroundings leaves him startled. Unlike his previous experience with synchro, this time his body remains unchanged, suggesting a different phenomenon at play. As he contemplates these changes, an elderly man with a white beard and long hair appears. Theodore soon recognizes the man as Mordal Hersium, the greatest elementalist of the century. His presence is as grand as a mountain range, and his gaze as deep as the sea. After a brief introduction, Mordal asks Theo to look into his eyes. After a long observation, Mordal speaks. He tells Theodore that he lacks the fiery passion of fire, the carefree spirit of wind, and the adaptability of water. These traits make him incompatible with fire, wind, and water elementals. Theodore, who has always been disciplined and focused, feels a sense of rejection. However, Mordal isn't done. He acknowledges Theodore's perseverance, comparing it to a rock that withstands all elements and eventually turns into sand. Mordal then summons an elemental that resonates with Theodore's steadfast nature. A bright light emanates, revealing a small figure made of clay. This figure, named Mitra, is an ancient and forgotten earth elemental. Mitra forms a bond with Theodore, signifying the start of a new contract. After the ritual, Mordal offers a bowl of food to Theo before leaving. As Theo tries to eat the food, he is immediately pulled back by an unknown force. Mordal says to himself that he is looking forward to what's to come. He says to Theo to come back to him again with the power on his left hand. As the connection with Mordal is terminated, Theodore returns to reality with a significant increase in his affinity to Earth and a new companion in Mitra. 3 days later, Theo found himself at the gates of Bergen Academy, laden with heavy luggage. Despite only packing essentials, the journey to capital was expected to take up to 10 days, and he needed to carry numerous books for gluttony. As Theo contemplated taking a carriage, Professor Vince arrived. He asks Theo about the need to carry so much with him. Theo explains that he took only a few necessities and the rest is food for gluttony. Vince knew that this would happen. He reveals a magic bag. This magical pouch could store items many times its size, providing a convenient solution for Theo's heavy baggage. With the luggage issue resolved, Vince urged Theo to start their journey due to time constraints. As they left the academy and headed towards the city, as they travel on the outskirts of the city, Theo asks Vince how they are going to reach Manville in 9 days since it takes at least 1 month to get there. Vince reassured him that he had planned ahead. He explained that this period attracted a large number of people to Manville, including tourists, magicians, and foreigners. Among them, merchants valued this time the most. Merchants from Bergen had created a new path through the mountain range to shorten the travel time. Despite the risks of monsters and bandits, this path was twice as fast as conventional routes. Merchants often hired mercenaries for protection and found the profits outweighed the costs. As Theo and Vince approached a large procession of wagons and mercenaries, they were greeted by Anna Farrell, a leader of Bergen's second largest merchant group. Anna greets Vince as if he was her husband, further confusing Theo. When Theo asks if they are married, Vince says to not ask. After Anna greets Vince, she asks him who his new companion is. Vince introduces Theo as his disciple and Anna as the only daughter of Gordon Farrell, the chief of Second Merchant Group. Recognizing Vince's status as a Fifth Circle Master, Miss Anna ensured they were treated as esteemed guests. They prepared a wagon for them with all the accommodation and even a shower for 2 people. Theo and Vince were treated with great respect, particularly by Miss Anna, a leading figure in the company. Their carriage was comfortable and well equipped, making the journey through the Naden mountain ranges quite pleasant. As they make themselves comfortable inside, Vince asked Theo to show him the elemental he had contracted with. As Theo summons Mitra, Vince takes out his notebook and gets ready. Vince was thrilled at the prospect of communicating with Mitra, but Theo explained that their communication was limited to simple expressions. Despite this, Vince found the interaction intriguing and advised Theo to frequently engage with Mitra as it would aid her growth. He noted down his observations about Mitra, finding the interaction more beneficial than years of research at Bergen Academy. Mitra seemed to be in high spirits, playfully exploring the carriage and interacting with Theo. He found her behavior endearing and spent his time engaging with her as they traveled towards Manville. In the midst of the journey, a powerful attack was launched at the wagons. The peaceful evening was shattered as a full-scale battle erupted. The front of the line was swarming with hobgoblins, their numbers too great to count. They were armed and ready for battle. The sudden battle noise woke up Theo. As he dresses quickly, he goes outside to check the situation. Outside, he saw an unexpected sight. Theo instructed Mitra to go underground. Mitra complied and began to share her underground view with Theo. As he sees the hobgoblin attacking, his position is compromised. And in a mere second, the hobgoblins were on to him. Theo, armed with his magic and determination, prepared to face the oncoming threat. However, as he plans his attack, an arrow narrowly missed him, hitting the wagon behind him. The arrow was shot with such force that it would have pierced through a shield and its bearer. As he dodges the attack, he falls right in front of the goblin army. To avoid the oncoming attacks, he uses Mitra's power and summons Earth Spikes, annihilating a horde of goblins in the process. Suddenly a figure emerged, a hobgoblin chief. A formidable opponent, known for leading hundreds, if not thousands, of hobgoblins. Theo realized that withdrawing from the battle would lead to his downfall. He gritted his teeth and prepared to fight. The hobgoblin chief launches a fierce attack towards Theo. Theo, with barely any time to react, cast an earth shield, barely escaping the attack. The hobgoblin chief, unfazed by Theo's defense, propels himself into the air, landing behind Theo. As the chief of the hobgoblins recovers his stance, he stands there menacingly, asking Theo if he is the same magician from earlier who was spying on them. Theo, still in shock from the previous attack, questions what is going on. Hobgoblin chief comments that Theo is getting weaker after just a few attacks. Unfazed by the comments, Theo begins to strategize an attack plan. He takes into account the strength, armor, and abilities of the hobgoblin chief. He understands that the task won't be easy, but he is confident in his ability to handle it. Theo summons Gluttony and casts Haste, accelerating his movements. He quickly found himself above the hobgoblin chief. Theo decided to try Magic Bullet, a spell that could penetrate the chief's defenses. After Theo's attack with the hobgoblin chief has dodged, he moves quickly behind Theo, kicking him into his head. Theo, taking the surprise attack, falls to the ground. As he starts to bleed from his head, he questions how it is that a hobgoblin can speak a human language and even use magic. The hobgoblin chief explains that it's all thanks to a slave that some bandits sold to him. It is common to sell war prisoners, and monsters are no exceptions. It was easy to get all the information from her since she has been tamed using brainwashing magic. And when the slave outlives their usefulness, they are thrown to the lesser hobgoblin. Theo asks if they killed the magician. The hobgoblin chief says to not worry about it, he soon will be in the same position. Theo finds a new resolve and decides to kill every last one of them. The hobgoblins begin to laugh at him. As they do so, Theo prepares a fierce attack. In a flash of light, he finds himself face to face with the hobgoblin chief, and with just one punch he obliterates the hobgoblin chief. After that, he begins to smash every single hobgoblin. The attacks are so brutal that even Vince, who is on the front lines, hears them. Vince asks Miss Anna about the situation on the front lines. Miss Anna says that thanks to Vince burning many of them, they will manage. As the situation on the front line is under control, Vince proceeds to check the rear. He commanded the remaining forces to follow him. Theo, after the carnage, can't even move his body. Yet despite that, he must find the strength to do so because another hobgoblin approaches him. The hobgoblin praises Theo for killing the war chief, and after seeing the fight, he commends Theo to fight him now. Before the hobgoblin can swing his sword, he is trapped by an earth spell. Theo, still regaining his strength, asks himself who is casting a spell. He looks back and sees Mitra, who is using all the power she has left to protect Theo. Theo, witnessing the resilient display of Mitra, decided to continue fighting. He launches an attack which barely phases the hobgoblin. The hobgoblin strikes Theo with a knee kick and then flips him over his back, smashing him into the ground. Theo, to avoid the impact, uses the levitation spell and manages to get himself out of the throw. He created some distance, but even that proves pointless since the hobgoblin collects weapons from the fallen goblins and throws them at Theo. Theo has no time to dodge. As Gluttony appears, he asks Theo if this is his limit. Theo answers with confidence, no. And he summons a triple-layer earth dome. The hobgoblin attacks Prices through the defensive spell, almost hitting Theo. As the dust settles, Theo manages to prepare another spell magic missile. With the last bit of his strength, he hits the hobgoblin with an headshot. Right after that, he fell to the ground. As if by sheer luck, the hobgoblin hasn't received any fatal wound. As Theo lays on the ground, the hobgoblin celebrates, becoming the new chief. His celebration is short-lived as Vince appears behind him, burning him into the ground, leaving nothing but ashes. Vince picks up Theo, who is barely conscious. Theo says that he couldn't protect them because he was too weak. Vince reassures him that it's not his fault, and the problem is that the world has become chaotic. Vince shows Theo the battlefield and all the people that Theo manages to save. After this victory, the convoy traveled in peace. Mercenaries' weapons, stained with hobgoblin blood, deterred other monsters from attacking. Trolls that dared to attack were swiftly killed by the mercenaries, who valued troll blood as a potion ingredient. During this time, Miss Anna approaches their carriage. She expressed her gratitude to Vince and Theodore for their invaluable help during the raid. She even acknowledges Theo's feat of killing a hobgoblin chief, a formidable opponent even for fourth circle magicians. Miss Anna, being an astute merchant, recognized Theo's worth and offered him and Vince a token of his appreciation. Vince accepted the offer, and Miss Anna presented them with a box she had brought with her. Upon unlocking it, a strangely glowing crystal was revealed. Vince was puzzled by the crystal, having never seen anything like it in his studies. Miss Anna admitted she didn't know what it was either, but mentioned that the Magic Society had been seeking it. Despite its unknown nature, Vince and Theodore accepted the crystal as a token of gratitude. The convoy started moving again. Vince then revealed that the crystal was not a crystal at all, but a monster berry, a magical fruit produced by plants that absorb monster blood. These berries lure monsters with their scent and enhance the powers of any monster that consumes them. Vince speculated that the hobgoblins they encountered were attracted by the monster berry. He also suggested that a use for these berries might have been discovered recently. Vince's cryptic mention of a potential discovery was soon forgotten as the procession neared Manville, the capital of the Melter Kingdom. The sight of the city, with its white spires piercing the sky, left Theodore in awe. The city was a bustling hub of magic and a landscape that seemed straight out of a fairy tale. Vince, too, admired the city he had not seen in a long time. He donned a luxurious red robe, signifying his affiliation with the Red Magic Tower. He then informed Theodore that they would head to the Magic Society as soon as they entered the city. The magic contest attracted a large crowd to Manville, and Vince wanted to avoid any delays. He also wished to keep Theodore's existence hidden from the Red Magic Tower, which focused on fostering combat-specialized magicians and would undoubtedly be interested in Theodore's potential. Manville, the capital of the kingdom, was known for its stringent security checks during the magic contest. The tension among the tourists, travelers, and delegates lining up at the city's main gate was palpable. However, Vince and Theodore were able to bypass the long queue thanks to Vince's invitation to the magic contest. As they left Miss Anna behind and moved past the line, Vince's red robe drew attention from the crowd. The robe signified his affiliation with the Red Tower, one of the 4 towers surrounding the Magic Society in Manville. The sight of Vince's red robes commanded respect from everyone, including the guards at the main entrance's checkpoint who saluted them as they passed. Vince, being a superior of the Red Tower and a Fifth Circle magician, was treated with great respect at the city's checkpoint. His identity was confirmed. After answering a few questions to verify his identity, Vince and Theodore were allowed to pass through the gate without any further checks. This was the privilege granted to those who received an invitation to the magic contest. As they crossed the checkpoint and entered Manville, Theodore was once again reminded of the high status of his companion, Vince. And so, Theodore took his first steps into Manville capital, the heartland of magicians. Upon arrival, Vince and Theodore entered the Magic Society. They made their way to the reception desk in the center of the building. Vince presented his invitation and requested a registration form for Theodore to enter the pupil tournament. After providing all necessary personal information, the staff member asks if he is a Fourth Circle magician. The staff member at the Magic Society's reception desk was taken aback when Vince revealed that Theodore was a Third Circle magician. Given the risks involved in the pupil tournament, the staff member tried to dissuade them from proceeding with the application. However, both Vince and Theodore were resolute. Theodore's recent victory over a hobgoblin chief had bolstered his confidence, and he was ready to face the challenges of the tournament. Just as the staff member was about to reluctantly accept Theodore's application, a blue-robed magician from the Blue Magic Tower intervened. He informed Vince that the rules of the tournament had changed since last year, hinting at some potentially crucial information that could impact their decision to participate in the tournament. Lauren, an average individual from the Blue Tower, explains the rules of the pupil tournament to Theodore. Participants receive a token, which they must keep intact to demonstrate their superiority. The loser forfeits all tokens, and the last number of tokens owned becomes their official record. Vince, who left Manville 7 years ago, is unfamiliar with this method. Lauren explains that the change was due to an increase in participants. As more magicians joined the contest, their disciples also increased, leading to a shift in the tournament format. Despite some calling it barbaric, Lauren sees it as a positive change, allowing participants to challenge opponents without fear of losing in the first round due to bad luck. Vince and Lauren discussed the competition format, which was decided after a rational discussion. The format allows competent participants to rise quickly by defeating those with many tokens, while less skilled participants are eliminated early. Vince, however, identifies potential loopholes, such as targeting tired opponents or avoiding fights after gaining a moderate number of tokens. Lauren appreciates Vince's insights and explains that the competition takes place in the Pentarium, a multi-stadium venue with impressive durability. Despite Lauren's helpful explanation, Vince remains suspicious of his friendly demeanor. Lauren introduces his disciple, Mia Glucko, to Vince and Theodore. He explains that new rules have been implemented to speed up the competition, such as not allowing a participant with only one token to deny a challenge. Lauren challenges Theodore to a match with his disciple, revealing Lauren's plan to use the rules to his advantage. Despite Lauren's underhanded tactics, Theodore accepts the challenge, eager to finish quickly and enjoy a restaurant meal that Vince has arranged for the evening. Thus, Theodore's first fight in the tournament begins. The match between Theodore and Mia begins in the Pentarium. Each participant wears a crystal. The crystals serve as a measure of each participant's health, with the match ending when all 3 crystals are destroyed. With the introduction, the fight begins. Mia, confident in her superior magic power, launches the first attack with Icicle Bolt, a spell that forms deadly ice arrows. The arrows may not be as fast as those from an archer, but their icy nature can slow down an opponent and cause lethal wounds. The match is now in full swing, with both competitors ready to use their magic at any moment. Theodore responds to Mia's attack with Shock Wave, a spell that deflects the ice arrows. Seizing the initiative, Theodore uses Ignite and Grease magic to cause Mia to slip, then strikes her with Wind Cutter, breaking one of Mia's protective crystals. Despite the intensity of the match, Theodore remains calm and confident. Thinking that he should lower his power a little, Mia, angered by Theodore's tactics, retaliates but is caught off guard by Theodore's Lightning Bolt. As Mia attempts to cast a shield spell, the ground rises and swallows her foot, causing her to lose focus and get hit by the lightning. This results in another one of Mia's protective crystals being shattered, leaving her with just one remaining. If this last crystal is destroyed, Theodore will be declared the winner and will take all of Mia's tokens. Theodore, having experienced real fights, finds Mia's reliance on higher circle magic naive. He argues that the effectiveness of magic doesn't depend on its circle level, a sentiment Vince agrees with. Mia, however, feels insulted by the use of lower circle magic in what she considers an honorable duel. In her anger, Mia begins to cast a powerful 4th circle spell, Frozen Wave. But Theodore, unfazed, prepares to counter with a spell of his own. As Mia attacks, she is caught off guard when a stone spear, created by Theodore and Mitra, emerges from the ground and pierces his hip. The pain causes Mia to collapse, and her last protective crystal shatters, marking her defeat. After Mia is taken away, Theodore is congratulated on his victory and given Mia's 4 tokens. Vince approaches Theodore, explaining that his practical experience and battle intuition give him an advantage over students who have only trained in controlled environments. As they discuss the match, a robust old man with a white beard and hair approaches them. Despite his age, he has the physique of a warrior and carries a large staff. He greets Vince enthusiastically, though his rough manner causes Vince some discomfort. The old man expresses interest in meeting Theodore, Vince's disciple. Vince introduces them to each other. When Vince reveals the old man is Blundell Acheranks, the supreme mage of the Blue Tower, Theodore is taken aback, realizing he's in the presence of the most important person he's ever met in his life. The 4 towers protect the Melter Kingdom. The magicians are divided into 5 ranks. Newcomers rank basic, ones with experience rank average, ones who acquired merits and fame rank superior, elders who are pioneers rank prime, and lastly the wisest member rank supreme. Theodore is taken aback by the realization that he's in the presence of Blundell Adrunkus, the supreme of the Blue Tower. This title signifies that Blundell is the top magician of the Blue Tower, a position of great prestige and importance. Despite his high status, Blundell maintains a friendly demeanor, encouraging Theodore to relax. However, Vince remains wary, suspecting that Blundell might have an ulterior motive for approaching them. Blundell's interest in Theodore is evident, as he even jests about wanting to take Theodore as his own disciple if he hadn't already found another student. Blundell reveals that he has a disciple who he believes will win this year's tournament. Just as Vince expresses his disbelief, an announcement declares the victory of a participant named Sylvia, who managed to win her match in just 24 seconds. This impressive feat draws the attention of everyone in the room. The victor, Sylvia, enters the room with a brilliant presence. She carries a large staff adorned with dozens of tokens. Recognizing her master, Blundell, she approaches him and is warmly greeted. It appears that Sylvia is the disciple Blundell was boasting about. Blundell, an old man, introduces Sylvia, a girl he's been teaching. Sylvia's emotionless voice and gaze are captivating, but it's her formidable magical strength that leaves Theodore, one of the onlookers, in awe. He realizes she's stronger than a formidable foe he's faced before. Blundell suggests a match between Theodore and Sylvia, but Theodore declines, aware of the potential damage to his reputation and his mentor Vince's. Sylvia loses interest in him. Blundell expresses disappointment and hopes for a future match before leaving with Sylvia. The tension eases once they leave, but Theodore and Vince remain on edge. Their planned restaurant visit is postponed. Theodore, despite recognizing Sylvia's superior magical talent, feels a strong desire to challenge her. His mentor, Vince, initially deems this choice unreasonable, but soon finds himself excited by the prospect of a thrilling match. The two share a moment of camaraderie, their hearts aligned in anticipation. Vince then decides to use his substantial savings from his years as a war magician to equip Theodore for the upcoming challenge, offering to buy him anything he needs from artifact stores and bookstores. Vince and Theodore leave the Magic Society building and head for the commercial district. The owner of an artifact store is initially disheartened by the lack of customers. However, her spirit is lifted when Vince and Theo enter. Recognizing Vince's superior rank and the potential for a lucrative sale, Vince demands the best artifacts that are in stock. The owner rushes to bring an iron box filled with artifacts. Theodore is awestruck by the collection, knowing that absorbing all these artifacts. However, Vince isn't satisfied and requests for a B-rank artifact. Despite its tremendous price and rarity, the owner acknowledges that a superior magician of the Red Tower like Vince is indeed qualified to purchase it. The owner unveils a pair of silver gauntlets made of mithril alloy by dwarven craftsmen. These precious rated gauntlets have the ability to create an air current that deflects projectiles when wind magic is applied. Theodore is taken aback by their value, which is estimated to be around 180 gold. But they can have it at a discounted price of 144 gold. Vince, unfazed, promptly pays for the gauntlets with 3 golden bars. Vince and Theodore continue their shopping spree, purchasing artifacts from various stores in Manville. The total cost of their acquisitions is enough to buy a manor house in the city. Back at their accommodation, Theodore feeds all the rare-grade artifacts to Gluttony. As Gluttony consumes items like the Necklace of Purity, Stone Fist Magic Bracelet, and Sticky Boots, Theodore's proficiency in various magic spells increases. The digestion process for all these artifacts will take about 1 hour and 58 minutes. Theodore, having consumed a multitude of artifacts, turns his attention to studying magic. He aims to not only accumulate enough magic power to reach the 4th circle, but also to learn and understand 4th circle magic. Vince joins him, sharing his extensive knowledge as a war magician. After 2 hours of intense study, Theodore experiences a surge in his magic power, marking his entry into the 4th circle. Vince congratulates him on this significant achievement, reminding him that this is just the beginning of his magical journey. The path ahead is challenging, with many magicians unable to progress beyond the 4th circle due to talent limitations, or the daunting wall beyond the 5th circle. The 9th circle, considered the pinnacle of magical achievement, has become a distant legend. Vince says that they should move on with the precious artifacts. Despite their value and rarity, Vince encourages Theodore to use them without hesitation for his preparation, assuring him that he will cover all costs. With Vince's reassurance, Theodore resolves to make full use of these artifacts. Theodore undergoes special training with Vince. Vince shares his extensive battlefield experience, emphasizing the versatility of water magic in offense, defense, and suppression. He explains that water exists in various forms as clouds in the sky, rivers on the ground, snow on mountain peaks, and fog in the morning. This ability to transition between solid, liquid, and gas states is the strength of water magic. However, its weakness lies in its lack of specialization. It's less powerful in attack than fire, weaker in defense than earth, and slower than wind. Thus, water magic is a medium attribute, balanced in various aspects. Theodore, with Vince's guidance, strategizes for his upcoming confrontation with Sylvia. Vince advises him to avoid close combat with Sylvia, revealing that her seemingly crude staff is actually a weapon she's mastered in the Eastern method of stick fighting. This revelation leaves Theodore preferring to face a magical attack rather than a physical one from Sylvia's staff. Despite the daunting prospect, Theodore's learning progresses well under Vince's mentorship. His understanding deepens not just from Vince's teachings, but also from his own insights and experiences. Theodore, after an intense training session with Vince, has shown remarkable progress. Despite the exhaustion, he's managed to stand his ground against Vince, a superior rank war magician of the Red Tower. His performance has not only met but exceeded Vince's expectations. Seeing Theodore's determination and growth, Vince gives him a perfect score, indicating his confidence in Theodore's abilities for the upcoming match with Sylvia. The grand finale of the pupil tournament was upon them. In the heart of Pantarium, a device displayed the rankings of magicians, based on the tokens they had collected. The audience was buzzing with anticipation and disbelief as they looked at the leaderboard. The top spot was held by Sylvia, a disciple of the renowned Blue Tower Master Blundell. She had shattered previous records, amassing an astonishing 95 tokens, almost double the usual count. This feat left the spectators in awe and admiration. In stark contrast, the second and third places were held by Pogani Woldest and Robert Dien, with 21 and 18 tokens respectively. The huge gap between first and second place led to murmurs among the crowd about whether others even had time to collect tokens. Sylvia, the silver-haired girl, sat quietly in a corner of the waiting room. If not for her muscular companion, she might have been swamped by those eager to converse with her. Blundell, the muscular mentor, grumbled about the lack of spirit among the young participants. He was disappointed that no one had challenged his disciple, Sylvia, for days. He couldn't comprehend the idea of running away from a challenge. Just as Blundell's frustration was about to boil over, a voice cut through the tension. It was Theo. He greeted Blundell respectfully, and then turned his gaze towards Sylvia. Theodore felt a change in himself. He no longer felt overwhelmed by Sylvia's strength. He believed he had a chance against her now. Blundell noticed Theodore's intent and moved aside, allowing Theodore to approach Sylvia. Theodore, undeterred by the emotionless gaze of Sylvia, issued his challenge for a duel in the pupil tournament. His declaration echoed in the silent room, drawing a mix of laughter and anticipation from the spectators. Sylvia, seemingly surprised, accepted his challenge. The main hall of the Pantarium opened. With the tournament coming to an end, this match would be the final one. The spectators, eager to witness this exciting showdown, began to gather in the Pantarium. As the crowd swelled with anticipation, Theodore and Sylvia stepped into the main hall, ready for their duel. Theodore was taken aback by the crowd that had gathered to watch the duel. This was a stark contrast to his previous fight, which had drawn a much smaller audience. The fame of Sylvia and the grandeur of the main hall had attracted a large crowd, causing Theodore to feel a bit overwhelmed. The audience was buzzing with curiosity and skepticism. Vince took a place among the spectators. He believed in his disciple's potential and encouraged Blundell to watch the match unfold. Finally, the final round of this tournament has begun. Match between Sylvia Adunkrus versus Theodore Miller. Theodore had observed Sylvia's fights and noted her unusually quick deployment of magic. Knowing he would be at a disadvantage if she took the initiative, he decided to act first. Using the combination of Blaze Shell and Gale Force resulted in an attack with both destructive power and speed. With a deafening explosion, the fireballs hit their target, leaving the audience in stunned silence at Theodore's powerful attack. A massive explosion filled the air with smoke and steam, shattering the stone floor of the stadium. Amidst the chaos, Theodore's eyes glowed gold, piercing through the smokescreen. He was shocked to find Sylvia unharmed, her robe's crystals intact. She had used defensive magic to shield herself. Theodore was puzzled as ice was weaker than stone. Then it hit him temperature. Ice could be as strong as steel if cold enough. Sylvia had used this principle to create an ultra-cold ice wall that withstood his attack. As Theodore prepared his next move, Sylvia acted first. She conjured a magic circle with her staff, summoning a liquid snake. This fourth circle magic transformed water into a snake-like creature that moved with the speed and aggression of a wild beast. Theodore had to retreat quickly to avoid its attack. The water snake's attack was so powerful that it could cause damage beyond the crystal's absorption capacity. It struck the ground with such force that it shattered the floor. Theodore quickly moved out of the snake's range, but it was faster than he anticipated. Despite its size, it was twice as fast as him. The water snake was not just an attacker but also a moving defense, blocking Theodore's path to Sylvia. His fireball and lightning bolt attacks were ineffective against it. If this continued, he would exhaust his stamina and magic power. Theodore decided to use one of his hidden cards, the magic bullet. He quietly stretched out his index finger, preparing enough power to penetrate through the water snake. He could now shoot 3 or 4 magic bullets without risking his life. With a determined look, Theodore stood up and maintained his posture. The water snake was chasing him at a terrifying speed, but he was ready to stop it. Theodore called upon Mitra, who had been waiting for his command. Mitra's magic caused the shattered stadium floor to rise up, forming a wall that the water snake crashed into. Despite its strength, it took the snake 3 hits to break through Mitra's barrier. Meanwhile, Theodore prepared his magic bullet. He aimed at Sylvia, who was obscured by her own water snake. The magic bullet shot across the stadium, piercing through the snake and hitting Sylvia. The impact caused one of the crystals on her robe to shatter. The audience was shocked by this turn of events. Sylvia's face was hidden by her bangs, leaving everyone in suspense about her next move. Suddenly Theo felt the intense aura. He was suddenly engulfed in a chilling cold, causing his teeth to chatter and goosebumps to form on his skin. Looking up, he saw a multitude of ice arrows pointing down at him from the ceiling. Sylvia had conjured at least 100 of them, a feat that left Theodore bewildered. As the arrows began to rain down, he knew that even a scratch from one could cause enough damage to break a crystal. With no time to dodge, Theodore cast Burning Hands, summoning 3 pairs of fiery hands. The hands clashed with the ice arrows, creating a dance of fire and ice in the air. Steam rose from the ground as the arrows evaporated, and thanks to Lucia's blessing, Theodore managed to avoid any damage. However, he couldn't help but worry about the frozen ground. Theodore dispelled his Burning Hands spell and tried to see through the steam when Sylvia, with her silver hair, suddenly appeared. She had closed the distance between them in seconds, not by teleportation or speed enhancement magic, but by sliding on an ice road she created with her magic. Caught off guard, Theodore barely managed to dodge Sylvia's staff attacks. Despite his sensory perception warning him of the attacks, he was pushed to his limits due to his lack of hand-to-hand combat skills. He remembered Vince's word about avoiding close combat. In a desperate attempt to create distance, he jumped back, but not before Sylvia's staff hit his crossed arms, breaking one of his crystals. Now at a tie score of 1-1, Theodore managed to put a distance between them. He knew he couldn't let Sylvia get close again. But as he watched her, he saw something unexpected. Sylvia was smiling like a child. The audience was in awe of the intense duel between Theodore and Sylvia. Initially, the pupil tournament was seen as a children's festival, but the level of competition had far exceeded their expectations. Blundell, the Blue Tower Master, was taken aback by the magic Theodore used. However, Blundell seemed more concerned about Sylvia's loneliness than the stakes. He lamented that her exceptional talent made it difficult for her to make friends, and that she had lost her childhood innocence at a young age. Blundell, watching the match, was pleasantly surprised to see Sylvia's psychological wall crumbling. He saw her smiling, a sight he had never seen before, and it brought a smile to his own face. He wished for her to experience all the joy she had missed in her past. Meanwhile, the duel between Theodore and Sylvia intensified. Fire arrows clashed with ice arrows. Sylvia used her ice road again for rapid movement, but Theodore was ready this time. He launched his magic bullet at Sylvia, who managed to dodge it using her haste spell and quick reflexes. However, Theodore had another trick up his sleeve: illusion track. He created a lifelike illusion of himself that fooled Sylvia, adding another layer of complexity to their duel. Theodore didn't waste the opportunity Sylvia's fall provided. He created a pit with stone spears that shattered her second crystal, putting him 1 point ahead. However, he remained cautious, knowing Sylvia was likely to counterattack. As expected, Sylvia charged out of the pit. Theodore kept a close eye on her, but then an icicle shot out from behind Theodore, hitting him in the same spot Sylvia had been hit earlier. One of his crystals shattered. Theodore realized that Sylvia had been observing his skills and tactics, learning from them at an alarming rate. She was quickly catching up. This was the first time Theodore had encountered a peer with an equal learning ability. Sylvia was delighted by the challenge Theodore presented. For the first time, she found a peer who didn't harbor feelings of jealousy or fear towards her, but instead engaged her on an equal footing in magic. This brought a genuine smile to her face, a joy she hadn't experienced since childhood. Growing up, Sylvia's unique silver hair and natural talent for magic had isolated her from her peers. Misunderstandings and envy had led her to build a wall around her heart to avoid getting hurt. This wall had become a real barrier, preventing her from advancing to the 5th circle in magic. The elders of the Blue Tower, including Blundell, cared for her but couldn't replace the companionship of a friend. Stuck in place for years, it was Theodore who reached out to her from beyond her collapsed wall, offering a new perspective and a chance for growth. For the first time, Sylvia was filled with a sense of excitement and appreciation. Her dormant magic began to stir as her emotions surged. As her magic power erupted, it created a gust of wind that shook the entire stadium. Sylvia, her cheeks flushed with excitement, declared her desire to win. Theodore, amused by her boldness, echoed her sentiment. He had spent his life chasing after others, magicians from storybooks, seniors at the academy, classmates who graduated before him. But now, he was ready to stop chasing and stand on his own. Theodore used his abilities to amplify his magic power and increase his affinity for attributes. His magic circles began to rotate slowly as his magic power increased. He still had one last trick up his sleeve. Sylvia used a second circle magic spell called levitation to float in the air, a smart move to avoid surprise attacks from below or ranged attacks. Theodore, known for his earth magic, saw Sylvia levitate as a countermeasure. However, his magic bullet made her a stationary target in the sky. Sylvia, having experienced magic bullet firsthand, surely knew this. Therefore, Theodore expected her to have a plan. As anticipated, Sylvia cast an ice shield spell. It was more of an ice fortress than a shield, completely obscuring her from Theodore's view. This was a well-thought-out strategy. Theodore decides to use his strongest magic and best affinity. He chanted for the fourth circle magic, double catapult. With his preparations complete, he communicated with the exhausted Mitra and waited for Sylvia's ice shield to clear. Theodore watched as Sylvia's magic transformed the stadium floor into a sheet of ice. The destructive power of her magic was evident. As Sylvia's ice shield melted away, she emerged and began to chant for Emer, the master of cold, creating a powerful blizzard that far surpassed normal fourth circle magic. Theodore responded by releasing all the spells he had prepared. He triggered 4 fourth circle spells, but they were not enough to counter the blizzard. He needed to act quickly before the damage absorbed by his crystal became too great. He decided to use fusion magic, overlapping the images of fireballs and stones to create a volcanic eruption. The resulting volcanic shells were a combination of his strongest attack and defense. The shells, massive rocks enveloped in fire, rushed towards the center of Sylvia's blizzard. The clash of their magic was imminent. The spectators were left in awe as a mix of black smoke and water vapor filled the air. Theodore barely managed to withstand the shockwave, his magic power completely drained. He clung to his last remaining crystal, his body swaying from exhaustion. As the dust settled, Sylvia emerged. She asked for his name, to which he replied, "Theodore Miller." She called him Theo and suggested they play again next time. Suddenly, the sound of a crystal breaking echoed through the stadium. However, Theodore's crystal was intact. He looked up to see Sylvia collapsed on the ground. The host then announced that Theodore Miller was the winner of the pupil tournament. The audience erupted in cheers and applause, impressed by the fiery battle between Theodore and Sylvia. Their mentors looked on with satisfaction. Theo was victorious. Stay tuned for part 3.